So last week we started our geography and topography notes. Today we are going to continue those notes. I am going to go through and review the ones from last week as we go through the slides. You should be taking your Cornell notes either on paper or on the digital Google template. So we started off with geography. We looked at the study of the physical features of the Earth and human activity. We also talked about how cartographers are map makers. We looked through 5 different types of maps, and I know not all the classes got to all 5 types, so I will go through those again with you guys. Political maps, they show the boundaries between countries, nations, states, and cities. This is my example here. There's also an example in my room as well. Physical maps, these show the natural features like elevation or mountains and rivers. Again, you can see the elevation on this African map. The mountains are the darker brown, and then in the ocean, you can see the darker blue is the depth of the water. Thematic maps, they show a single focus such as roads, natural resources, or precipitation. This map, again, is showing you that single focus or theme by showing you the lines, the arrows going from Japan into China with the dates accompanying them. Topographical maps, these show a special kind of map that provides three-dimensional information in a drawing. This is very similar to a physical map, just with more detailed information, and if it was in a 3D image, you'd be able to see those details of the map more clearly. This is a historical map, a map that reflects historical phenomena and events, which can include ancient cultures and states, social movements, and trade routes. My example here is a city planning map of Florence. This is an example. If we were in class together, I would have asked you guys to tell me what you thought this was. This is an example of a political map showing you the political regions in Europe. This is an example of a topographical map. Again, it's just a little more detailed than that physical map that we saw earlier. We are going to watch this video real fast. This gentleman does talk very quickly, so make sure that you're listening and just paying attention to the maps. Okay, so as he was talking about in there, he mentioned a lot of different types of maps, and as we looked at 5, there are many other types of maps, especially when you get into those different thematic maps. Those thematic maps can be about almost anything. One of the other things about maps is that when you take, for example, what he was showing you is if you took that round world or think of a globe and you flattened it out, the projection or the way that it lays is going to be different from that sphere, from that circular aspect than the flat aspect. And so real quick, I just want to talk to you about this map that you see in front of you, which is called the Peters-Gall projection, and it is the more realistic of any map that we have had so far created. And it might look very different from a lot of maps that you've seen, especially in education and what you've been taught in the past. A couple of things that I just want to point out on this map. One, he talked about Africa being very, very large, and that is true. On this map, you can see that Africa is quite bigger than any other map that you might see. If you happen to be sitting in Miss Rowe's room, you can see on some of the maps around the room that Africa is the same size as what he was talking about, like Greenland or South America, or even comparative to Australia, where in fact it's very, very large. And you heard all those different countries that can actually fit inside Africa. Another thing about this map is if you notice the equator line here in the middle, okay, it stretches through part of South America, and then literally almost all of Africa is north of that equator. All right, and you can see that all of North America, all of Asia and Europe are above that equator line. Okay, very little is below that equator line. Okay, if you were to look at a different projection, okay, which he referenced the Mercator projection, this equator line actually comes up to bisect more along this line, all right, in the middle of Mexico, going across like northern Africa, the peninsula, Saudi Peninsula over here, India, and China. This is what confuses a lot of people because they think that the equator really divides the world in a true half, where in fact it does not. All right, it is lower, it's further south than what people think. Also, if you notice at the top of this map, Alaska, northern Canada, and a lot of these northern European countries and into Russia seem kind of smushed up at the top. That is because if we were to take this and actually turn it into a globe, these would be like around that Arctic Circle area where Greenland and Iceland sit. And this is a true depiction of our world than what you've seen before again. And so these are very far north, much farther north than what we probably think of from the maps that we've looked at growing up. Okay. And then what he was talking about with north being up is if you wanted this map to be very, very accurate, you would actually flip it upside down. And that is because the people that started making maps, all right, Europeans and people from the eastern side of the Asian continent, they were the ones in charge. And so usually you associate people who are in charge like at the top of the list. And so they literally started making maps with the people that were making them at the top. And so that is why north is north. Okay. And we'll get more into that and some of that historical aspect of that later on. Okay, elements of a map. All right. These should be in your vocabulary, but I think it would also be really helpful for you guys to add these to your Cornell notes, okay? So elements of a map. We definitely are going to have a title usually. Again, some of those examples that we looked at together might not have a title, but it's just a simple purpose of the map, okay? For this example on my screen here is Languages of Bangladesh. I know it might be cut off a little bit at the bottom, all right? But that is the title there. The key and legend, this shows the symbols or features. This kind of just interprets the map for you. If there's no key or legend, then you probably will have to use some just context clues and some inferences to see what's about. But for this map, these are language families. And so you can see that there's a couple different variations of the language families that are found in Bangladesh. And they've highlighted those on the map for you in the corresponding colors that they are in the key or legend. Next is the scale. This is the relationship between a unit of length on map and the corresponding length on the ground. Okay, this scale is found right here. Okay, and it means that like this little like inch here is going to be 50 miles. Okay, and then from here, this is 50 kilometers. Okay, So you can see that it's obviously not real life, but if you were to go from like here 50 miles in, all right, you might come to this river, all right? And then the compass rose. The compass rose shows the true cardinal directions, all right? This map does not have a cardinal rose, or excuse me, compass rose, but it is oriented with north top, south bottom, okay? Most maps, if they don't have that compass rose, they will be oriented correctly for you, okay? Location, again, these are in your vocab, but I think this is just good review for you guys to put these in your notes again. So absolute location, that's the latitude and longitude, or the global location, or you can also have a street address, the local location. So my example here is Paris, France is at 48 degrees north latitude and 2 degrees east longitude. And again, this next part might be cut off from the screen just a little bit, but my next example is that the White House is located at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. That's the street address or the local address. Relative location is described by landmarks, time, direction, or distance from one place to another. My example here is go 1 mile west on Main Street and turn left for 2 blocks. We talked about this when I was doing vocab with like how to explain like where Burlington is from here, okay? The grid system. So this is getting into that prime meridian and that equator. And again, we will practice this later on, but you should have these in your notes. The prime meridian is the starting point for longitude and the equator is the starting point for latitude. All right. They are both imaginary lines that bisect and cut the world in half. All right. One does it east-west, one does it north-south. Okay. All right. This is where we're going to stop our notes for today. All right. This map that you see here on your screen is what you are going to use for the handout that your teachers will give you for this social studies assignment. This handout is supposed to be turned in before Wednesday. Okay. So this is for my purple days and my silver day. All right. I know you guys are testing and you guys have some other things that you're working on, but you're going to use this map to answer those questions on the document that's called Navigating Maps. All right, there's 5 questions. All right, none of them are too hard, and they all reflect back on the notes that you just took. All right, so if you get confused or you have a question, all right, make sure that you look back at the notes from earlier. Also, down here at the bottom, excuse my slide thing that just popped up, but down here at the bottom, you will see that it's the very bottom is cut off. I think you guys will still be okay. If you have a question, you are always welcome to ask your teacher or ask me during Life Ed as well. All right, guys, thank you for being patient and watching your notes with me. I hope you took good Cornell notes. If you missed anything as we went through, you are always welcome to go back and re-watch this and add to those Cornell notes as you need to. Have a great day, guys. Bye.